The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
And we are live. Live on this beautiful Easter Monday. I hope everybody had a good Easter weekend. It was a very fun day for our family. Got together, had the usual Easter traditions going on, but it was very, very, very fun. So hopefully everybody had a good Easter weekend. Casey, how was your Easter weekend? Did you guys start throwing down eggs yet?
Throwing down eggs for Sawyer?
For a little Easter hunt, maybe for next year.
No.
Load them up early.
No, not.
She'll never see where you hit them if you hide them now.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, we didn't do any early Easter egg hunts for the baby Sawyer. However, I was thinking about it yesterday. She'll be around 10 months old, so she'll possibly be crawling for sure at that point. So we got to train her, get her up to speed before next year. I'll be doing some timing drills and things of that nature, making sure that she's hitting those numbers that we need her to get so she can get lots of candy. Because this year the adults got no candy.
No candy?
No candy from my side, yeah.
I'm not a big candy guy in general, and this year I feel like our family had more candy than we've ever had in a very, very long time. So, I mean, buckets, but almost like significantly more than I've gotten on Halloween in like 15 years. So, absolutely outrageous. Jacob, how was your Easter weekend?
It was a good weekend. Played golf on Easter Sunday with my mom and one of my buddies and his dad. It was a good time. And listened to the Reds on the radio, scored 20 million runs, billion runs. So, yeah, it was a really, really fun weekend. Good weather, except for a little bit of rain on Saturday. But we got a good Sunday. It wasn't too muddy. So, yeah, I thought it was good.
We were watching the Reds game, and my dad's like, "Yeah, put it on," and I already knew the score. It was I think it was 11-1. I'm like, "It's over." It was at that time. It was the fifth inning. It's over, and we just kept like scrolling around the TV. We were watching a little bit of the golf. We were just sitting outside. We come back in. Yeah, put it on real quick. We'll see what the score is. 16-1. It's like, all right, it's over. We're done. We'll walk back outside. Flip it back on like 15 minutes later. What's the score? Oh, it's 20-1. Go back outside. It's done. It's over. Nobody needs to know the score anymore. What's the score? Oh, they've scored 24 runs. They've scored 24 runs. I didn't do the math. I was gonna do the math, but honestly, I just got tired. How many of our runs? If you had to calculate all of our runs and then separate it between our three big games, I think one against the Brewers, one against the Orioles, and the one against the Rangers. If you had to separate all of those three games amongst the rest of the runs, how many runs have we scored?
That's a good question. I can figure that out for you.
Because I was trying to figure it out, and I didn't know how to do it. I also played golf a little bit this weekend. Very
nice.
So I actually played 9 holes on Thursday night. I played 9 holes on Friday night, and I played 9 holes on Saturday afternoon.
There you go. That's 18 holes.
I played very bad on Thursday. On Friday, I played very bad, snapped a club.
Ooh.
Snapped it right in half.
That's good.
Yeah, I probably need to stop snapping clubs. But I snapped a club. RIP I think it was, 8-iron? RIP my 8-iron. I'll have to get a new 8-iron. And then I move over to Saturday, and I was playing my buddy David. And David was a college golfer. He's very, very good. He hits a driver about 330, 325. And it's kind of hard to go up against him. I had him beat. It came down to the last hole. It's where I lose my distance. So the last hole was a longer hole, par 4, and he can get to the green in 1. So it's like it's impossible for me to compete. I parred it. He birdied it. And it was it was a brutal beat, but yeah, I shot even par on 9 holes, so I felt pretty solid about my game heading into this weekend.
42% of our runs have come in those 3 games. It goes up to 52% if you include the 11-8 extra innings win against the Mariners. So 4 games over 50% of the Reds' runs, going by the 117 runs scored by the players.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I mean, we'll talk about what's going on. I don't know what to say anymore, really, because I think that everybody on Twitter made the joke that the Reds were, they've scored their runs for the week.
Yes.
They've hit their quota.
Yes.
Which means they're not going to score any runs this week. This is like the easiest part of the schedule of the entire season, so I'm hoping that's not the case. But yeah, you take the Marlins and the Rockies, and then you have the Nationals and the Cardinals, and it's a pretty fairly, and then you have the Braves, fairly easier schedule. And I hope that we didn't burn 24 runs on the Orioles just to lose out everything else. So we'll talk about it. We'll get into everything. We appear to have a couple of decent players on the team after watching that series. Still, some of them are struggling.
Back half of this order is maybe the best in the league.
But clearly, the catcher position, a position that we thought would severely underperform this year, not the case.
No.
Not the case.
No.
They've been absolutely phenomenal. Again, we'll get into all of
This
that.
was the dream we had for Tyler Stevenson, Luke Maley, and Kirk Casale.
Correct.
This was the
This was our
three-headed
dream.
monster, the three-catcher dream. It's just Austin Wynns, Jose Trevino, and then hopefully
Yeah.
soon enough, Tyler Stevenson.
Yeah. Outside of that, anything else from this weekend, Casey? I know you had WrestleMania.
That's right.
yeah.
And I didn't want to put this in headlines because it's not a headline, but how was WrestleMania?
Oh man, Saturday was brutal. My
It's a
guy,
2-day event?
Yeah, it's a 2-day event.
Oh, wow.
My guy Gunter losing to Jey Uso. We all know on this show how much I hate Jey Uso. That was a brutal
Yeah, it's
way
the
to
one
lose.
thing I know about
He
you.
lost by his own move, his own submission move. He lost to his own move. That's
Wow.
But they
Yeah.
wrote that for him, right?
right.
What do you mean wrote it? It's real.
Right.
I just
But
don't get it.
You know what?
Was it John Cena's last match?
It was supposed to be John Cena's last hurrah this match, I believe. Yeah. So
Did he win?
Yesterday, which was day 2,
Sure.
was fantastic for me. Logan Paul, he won. I
Wow.
love that. He's
Goat.
finally
Ohio's own.
solidified himself as an up and coming WWE star, in my opinion. And then John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. John Cena gets the win, man. He's the GOAT. 17 championships, man. And what more can you say?
Wow. So this is it? Is this the end of the whole wrestling season, or do they just wrestle throughout the rest of the year?
They
too?
wrestle tonight.
Oh, they. I don't get it. I need, honestly, the lore of wrestling. I need somebody to lock me in a room and just teach it to me for hours and hours and hours until I understand what the hell's going on.
But that would require you to be locked in a room and be taught wrestling.
Yeah, I know that would be unfortunate. But so you're telling me they had the season finale and then they just keep going? Like that was the big event.
Yeah, that was like.
I think it's kind of like in the middle of the season, though.
No, I mean they just got to keep going. Like
Yeah.
they got to set up the next set of storylines, set of
Interesting.
scripts. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it was, in all honesty, it was a pretty disappointing finale.
Yeah.
It was very
So a lot of upset fans.
very boring. Very not a lot happened. And Travis Scott was very random.
That's right. Big hero of the biggest
Wow.
match of WWE's year is Travis Scott.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's not random. Like he's part of the storyline, but
Sure.
Of course.
But it was very random for him to be the only one to make a guest appearance and to make such a significant impact in the match overall.
Big part of this storyline is The Rock, one of the biggest WWE heroes of all time. How was his appearance last night?
Didn't show up.
Didn't show up.
There was no The Rock.
There was no.
Why wasn't there The Rock?
Not a clue. Not a clue. I was wondering when
People
he was
were
going
on
to
the
show
edge
up.
of their
He never
seat
did.
waiting for The Rock appearance.
I was waiting for The Rock, and I didn't even watch or have ever watched. But okay, that's enough WWE talk. So Gunter wins the championship.
I think Gunter lost.
Gunther lost. Gunther lost his.
I know. I'm just messing around. All right, so we're gonna get into headlines next. That was a silly segment. We're gonna get into headlines next. Then we're gonna talk about the Cincinnati Reds. Are they back? Are they not back?
might be.
Let's do this song and dance the whole year.
Why not?
The entire year.
Why not?
They do it every single time. Every single season they play the same brand of baseball. But hey, they scored 24 runs for the first time in 26 years, so good for them.
Second most runs scored in the oldest baseball team's history.
That's right. That's right. ESPN 1410, Wing AM, Chatterbox Sports, Off the Bench with Elliot, Jacob, and Casey here in Hamilton, Ohio. By the way, the rain is still coming down. I wish the rain would have stopped. We had a good weather weekend, I felt like. A little bit of rain.
Now, if you have to make the trade,
Sure.
rainy Monday versus rainy Saturday, Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're
correct.
talking about 80 for Luca here.
Yeah.
This is a no-brainer.
Yeah, 100%. So ESPN 1410 Wing AM. We'll be right back. Yo, we are back. We are back and better than ever. Who says that? Was that? I mean, I know it's a common thing, but I felt like there was one guy who's always said back and. Was that Mike and Mike? I think that was Mike and Mike. Back and better than ever. I could be wrong. Almost certain that's Mike and Mike. Welcome on in ESPN 1410 Wing AM Chatterbox Sports off the bench with the three of us clowns in here today. No Kinner. Hopefully Kinner is back tomorrow. Hopefully he's back tomorrow. But here we go. The headlines from this weekend. If you were gone this weekend, if you were having yourself a nice Easter weekend, not caring about sports, well, I got them all covered for you right here.
Score updates, breaking news, local and national headlines, whatever's going on in the world of sports, Elliot has you covered. Off the Bench brings you Elliot's headlines.
That's right. I do have you covered. MLB, we'll start with Major League Baseball, and we'll start with your Cincinnati Reds. The Reds win the rubber match 24-2 over the Baltimore Orioles. They became, now here's some stat nuggets for you.
I like stat nuggets.
They became only the second team in modern-day history to lose 3 consecutive 1-0 games while also scoring 24 runs in a game 3 weeks later. Only the second team ever. They jumped from 15th to 4th in runs scored.
Wow.
They were 15th, which
Middle
is
of the
like
pack.
middle of the pack. They haven't to 4th.
Very nice.
They are 3rd in run differential. Their batting average climbs as a team from 226 to 244. That's 19th back end to 13th. All of a sudden, we look pretty good offensively. You go to Austin Wynns. Austin Wynns is the first 9-hole hitter with 6 hits in Major League Baseball history. The first 9-hole hitter in Major League Baseball history yesterday to get 6 hits. Now, how do these stats come into play when position players are coming in the 7th, 8th, and 9th? I don't care. Doesn't matter. He made history yesterday as the greatest catcher maybe of all time.
When I read that stat, I was waiting for the normal baseball stat, like second or third qualifier there,
Yeah.
and it just wasn't. I just scrolled, it just wasn't there.
No.
He's just the first 9-hole hitter ever to have 6 hits. No other qualifier necessary.
27 9-hole hitters have had 5 hits. Not our guy Austin Wynns. 6 hits for him. Wynns and Marte are the first pair of Reds teammates with 5+ hits in a game since Frank Robinson and Vada Pinson. That was August 14th, 1959. 1959. Wynns and Marte, the first pair of Reds teammates with 5+ hits in a game. And because they hit 8 and 9, they broke a bunch of records there
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Marte is now the youngest Red to have 5 hits in a game since 21-year-old Johnny Bench did it in 1969. And it was, obviously, as I mentioned before, it was the first time the Reds have scored 24 since my birth year, 1999. How about that for your Cincinnati Redlegs? And that, by the way, thank you to On Base Machine on Twitter. Thank you for those stats. Those were fun stats. They had 25 hits in the game. It was a bullpen day. For those of you who missed it, I believe Carson Spires was banged up the night before. He wasn't going to start it. Nick Lodolo was on paternity leave. He couldn't start it. So that means it was a bullpen day and a great day for Brent Suter and the rest of them who absolutely dominated. And once you go up 11, I mean, it truly doesn't matter after that. They're not going to try.
Carson Spires, I know we lost game 2, and it certainly wasn't a pretty outing for Hunter or Carson Spires, really anyone. But the stories coming out about what Carson Spires did on that game honestly, it's remarkable. And it's saving the season and put the Reds. I know they scored 24 runs. You didn't need a lot of that bullpen, but it put you in a position to have people available to pitch in that rubber match. He threw 95 pitches out of the bullpen in a game that he wasn't healthy, that he was supposed to start the next day. Immediately goes to the IL. Terry Francona said he saw he was out of gas during that game, but they didn't have another option. So massive round of applause, kudos, and thank you to Carson Spires for powering through, all those injuries to, power through and give us all that time out of the pen.
I said it before the year. There are roles for innings eaters out there. That's their only job. Their job is to eat innings when nobody else can. And you go 4 innings and you get beat up and you throw 95 pitches. But guess what? You're saving the team the next game or 2 games because our guys don't have to get worn out the whole time. So Carson Spires, thank you very much. You did a great job. Randy Wynn yesterday gets a 3-inning save. That is a 3-inning save. I've always had this thought too. Can teams who are up by so much, can they put in position players, or is it considered disrespectful? Like if you're playing blackjack right at the table and you have like 2 kings or 2 queens up against a 5, you don't split it because it's bad juju for the rest of the table, almost because you already have the win, and it's like you don't want to mess with it. I feel like that would have been a perfect Luke Maley game yesterday. Come in when you're up by 20, and you just sit there throwing lobs and see if they can hit something.
Legally, the winning team can only use a position player if they're leading by 10 runs in the 9th inning.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that. That's a rule?
Trailing teams can use them when they're trailing by 8 or more runs at any point.
Wow.
Winning teams, it has to be 10 runs and only in the 9th inning.
I didn't know that.
I think that's a new rule as of implemented in 2023. So either 2023 or 2024 season. Obviously doesn't come into play much, but yeah, it's very hard to get a position player on the mound. You have to be up 10 runs, and even then they can only pitch for 3 outs.
Unreal. Up next for the Reds is the Marlins tonight at 6:40 p.m. It is Nick Lodolo off of paternity list versus Max Meyer. Max Meyer's having a great season so far with the Miami Marlins. Going over to the rest of the league, the Nationals, they win 3-2 in Colorado. The Rockies win the second game in Colorado 3-1. So good for the Rockies. Rockies, they have a stat I saw Jacob told me right before the show.
They do. No winning streak this year.
Oh.
Every other 29 teams in the MLB have a winning streak. None for the Rockies. Probably haven't played at home yet.
It's a tough place to play in Colorado, so I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure it'll happen against the Reds.
Yeah.
The Padres, they hold on to beat the Astros 3-2. Luis Arias was taken out of the game after a brutal collision at first base, but they do win 3-2 over the Astros. Fernando Tatis hit a home run late in the game to seal it.
The Padres just collect players you've heard of and play them at random positions.
Oh, yes.
Jose Iglesias out in left field this year. Luis Arias playing first base now. Everyone else is a shortstop. It's pretty crazy.
They call it the Reds method. The Angels, they win 5-4 over the Giants. They scored 4 in the bottom of the 9th to walk it off. The Dodgers, they shut out the Rangers 1-0. Our good friend Tyler Mahle, he pitched a gem yesterday, just couldn't get the win, gave up 1 run. The Diamondbacks, they win the series finale 3-2, but they lose the series to the Cubs. I will say, there was a game on Friday night between those 2 teams. That was absolutely insanity. I think they scored 15 combined runs in the 8th inning. Somebody tweeted out, couldn't imagine betting the over in this game. And then, obviously, the game soared over in the 8th inning. Absolutely crazy series there. Heading over to the Brewers, they dropped 14 on the Athletics. They win that series. The Royals, they took the Tigers to extra innings, walked away victorious 4-3. The Mets, they beat the Cardinals 7-4. The Rays, they got shut out by the Yankees 4-0. The Mariners crushed the Blue Jays 8-3. The White Sox won a game 8-4 over the Red Sox yesterday. Good for them. The Braves sweep the Twins with a 6-2 win yesterday. That seemingly, I think that has to be the first sweep of the year for the Braves. The Marlins, they win the finale in 10 innings against the Phillies 7-5. And the Pittsburgh Pirates, they lose yet again. They get swept by the Guardians 5-4 the final yesterday. And I believe they were doing some editing with the broadcast as the fans started cheering "Sell the team" on Sunday. So The broadcast did some crafty editing to not have that on the broadcast.
One of my favorite things about the Pirates and their ownership is obviously that their owner's name is also Bob. So
Really?
you know, just like us, maybe not as much recently, but certainly a few years ago, Sell the Team Bob shirts populated 2 of the NL Central stadiums. Their owner, he walks the concourse. Sometimes they have a little rotunda to go up to the box. He walks that sometimes when it's a nice day. Had done it once this year and was just berated the whole time. One of the funniest videos of the entire year, his walk up that circle steps. I don't think he's done it again.
Really?
Maybe won't, based on seeing the fan reactions there. I think billionaire owners might be some of the most out-of-touch people when it comes to their fan base, especially when their team isn't performing. You think everyone just kind of loves you and loves the team, and that's never the case when you're not putting money in, when you're not performing on the field. And he certainly got a taste of that a couple weeks ago. But, yeah, that has to be one of the most interesting owner-fan relationships. I don't even know if it's interesting because we all know how they feel, but that's Reds on steroids. I mean, you have a historic prospect in Paul Skeens as your ace, and you spend $0 this offseason to put anything around him. Jarrett Jones as your number 2, Bubba Chandler coming up. You have an elite pitching staff, a great ballpark. That's awesome when fans are there, and you just give them no reason to come. It really is a shame.
NHL news, heading over to the NHL. They should probably get, you know what they should do? They should probably send them on that rocket with all like Katy Perry and all the celebrities. Send them up to space. And then and then maybe they can do like a little documentary there. NHL news, Saturday, the Avalanche. Casey, congratulations. The Avalanche beat the Stars 5-1. Reed's Stars are down a game early. Your thoughts?
I mean, what did you expect?
You're right.
What did you expect?
I
It's the
certainly didn't
Avalanche.
expect
It's
anything.
Natural disasters.
Yeah.
They're going to get it done.
That's my favorite bit. You just say the natural. Does anybody else call them the natural disasters?
No, it's just me.
It's
Shout
just
out
you?
to the
I like
natural
that, though.
disasters because as an over 5.5 goals better in that game,
Wow.
the Stars did not help.
Wow.
So the Avalanche really pulled their weight in that one with a 5-1 final.
The Jets, they beat the Blues 5-3, and on Sunday, the Golden Knights took care of the Wild 4-2. The Senators, they lost to the Maple Leafs 6-2. The Devils, they were handled by the Hurricanes 4-1. Those are some of your NHL playoff scores. Heading over to the other postseason that's going on right now. How about the NBA? On Saturday, the Timberwolves, they crushed the Lakers 117-95. Luka dropped 37 points. LeBron scoring 19. McDaniels led the way for the T-Wolves with 25. The Knicks, they took game 1 from the Pistons, 123-112. Jalen Brunson, he dropped 34. Towns, 23 and 10. The Nuggets, they escaped with a 2-point victory in overtime against the Clippers Saturday night, 112-110, the final score. Nikola Jokic, 29 points, 9 boards, 12 assists. And you head to the Bucks. They lost to the Pacers 117-98 without Damian Lillard. He is supposed to return for Game 2 or Game 3. Siakam had 25 in that game, leading the way for the Pacers. Giannis scoring 36 and 12.
At the end of that game, Damian Lillard, Tyrese Halliburton kind of met at mid-court, chirping, going back to a timeout late in that one. It's going to be really fun when he comes back and those two are matched up against each other. I think that's going to be one of the more fun first-round series. Pacers-Bucks, they don't like each other a whole lot.
Heading over to Sunday's games, the 1 seed in the West, the Thunder, they won by 51.
Yeah, they sure did.
51 against the Grizzlies. Aaron Wiggins led Thunder scorers with 21. SGA had 15, but only in 23 minutes. Obviously, when you're up by a billion points, you don't need to play anybody. So good for the Thunder. They won by 51 over the Grizzlies in Game 1. The Celtics, they dominated the Magic, 103-86. I was just looking at the box score. It didn't look like Jason Tatum. No, he wasn't the leading scorer again. Derek White, he scored 30, 7 for 12 from beyond the arc, leading the Celtics team in scoring. Boncharo, he dropped 36 for the Magic. Jason Tatum's X-rays were clean after a flagrant foul, causing him to drop out of the sky a little bit, hard fall. But his X-rays are clean, so hopefully he can contribute like 7 points next game.
That'd be nice.
Somewhere around there.
Lord knows that's all they need from him.
7 to 8, or when I close my eyes and I think of Jason Tatum, I just think of 4 off the bench. But when I think of Derek White, I think of an MVP.
7 for 12.
Maybe the most underrated, truly one of the most underrated players in the history of sports.
Certainly. Has anyone changed their career trajectory more by a simple haircut than Derek White?
No.
I mean, he was nothing with that balding patch on top of his head. He shaved it off, and he's one of the best role players in the league.
His hair was tough. The Cavaliers. How about the Cleveland Cavaliers? They win by 21 against the Heat, 121-100. Donovan Mitchell scored 30. Darius Garland scored 27. Ty Jerome cooked up a hell of a second half. 28 points there. So unbelievable game for the Cavaliers. They win they go up 1-0 in that series. The Warriors, they fend off the Rockets 95-85. Curry and Butler, they combine for 56 of their team's 95 points and their win over the Rockets. That's it for the NBA playoffs. Heading over to the RBC Heritage. That's right, Hilton Head, the great historic Hilton Head Island round of golf. It is a premier event on the PGA Tour. Justin Thomas, Andrew Novak went to a playoff, but it was JT who sunk the game-winning putt in Hilton Head, his first win on tour since 2023. Good for him. He jumped, I think, in putting from like 170th to 24th. His putting has been a massive improvement, and you could see it all weekend long in Hilton Head.
Do you think the caddy could help with something like that?
A caddy?
Yeah, you think that could possibly help with your short game and reading greens? Yeah. Max Homa moved off his career-long caddy 2 weeks ago. This is the second tournament Justin Thomas has used him for.
Oh, no, Max. Heading over to FC Cincinnati, Casey, the Orange and Blue won 3-2 over Chicago. They've won 4 in a row.
That they have.
They look good?
They look good. I think that the offense is starting to kind of finally click a little bit. Matt Miazga being able to play a little bit helps as well. He's starting to kind of find his way back into playing good defense. I think the team is just – they always start slow. I think that's just a Cincinnati thing in general, and they just kind of start taking off here. This is where they usually just really get going. We'll see what happens at the midway point, because that's when they start playing out of MLS tournaments, things like that. But as of right now, the team looked really good Saturday, and I was impressed. They're second on the table right now, and should only be up from here.
That's right. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. I guess, by the way, and shout out to our radio listeners, thank you for tuning in right now. I am going to put in my email address for our good friend John Silvani in the chat after this, so don't think I won't do that. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about your Cincinnati Reds. Clearly, it was a bad weekend for the Elly to the outfield, and Terry Francona should be fired. It's always a tough weekend when the Reds win. So tune on in for the positivities coming up next. Well, the Reds had themselves a weekend. Yes, they did. They had themselves a weekend. It was a bounce back, a much-needed bounce back series after blowing Game 3 to the Mariners a few days ago. You win Game 1 of this series, you feel good. Game 2 happens. It's Hunter Green on the mound. Hunter Green struggles for the first time. They lose the game. And then you come into yesterday on Easter Sunday, and it's a bullpen day. You clearly don't expect much. I didn't expect much at all. And what do the Reds do? They take care of business. The Cincinnati Reds, they absolutely dominated that game in every sense of the word. 24-2, the final score. I don't remember a game in my life where they've dominated so easily. and you had production out of every single player. When you have 25 hits, it's kind of hard not to have every player contribute. I looked at the box score. I think Espinal was the only guy who didn't have a hit. Poor guy. He only had 2 at-bats, though, to be fair to him, but didn't have a hit. Listen, I don't know what to overreact about when it comes to a series like this. They're not a bad team. They're not horrible. But it's strange to me how they can be this on one day, and then for a week straight they'll struggle to score runs and they'll struggle to get on base.
Yeah,
that's just so strange to me. But last week it was the big debate about Elly de la Cruz. Where is he going to play? Where is he going to play? He needs to do more. It's Elly's fault. This is all Elly's fault. He had an absolutely incredible series. Incredible. Both defensively and offensively. The play he made yesterday, diving across seemingly the entire infield, saving a run. There is 0 shortstops. 0. Not a single shortstop in this league makes that play. Elly de la Cruz does. So when you talk about the routine, fundamental, easy mistakes that sometimes occur when Elly is out there at short, and then you look at what happened yesterday, do you not at least understand the rationale for keeping him there? I didn't play high-level baseball. I played up until I was, a sophomore in high school. I just played for fun. But I like to think I understand the game a little bit. I know what's going on out there. I know how to play the sport. And if any team had Elly at shortstop, any team, they would never, ever, ever, ever move away from him at that position, unless it was the third because you have another elite superstar and you just have way too many superstars to fill. But that's not the case with the Reds infield. You have Matt McLain and you have Elly. Both are great. Both are great. Would I be opposed to seeing Matt McLain at short and Elly at third one day? No, because I think both are really, really good. But as of right now, there's no reason to move him off of shortstop because he's absolutely phenomenal in that role. He's absolutely phenomenal. Hit, 2 home runs this weekend, I think? Might have been 3 if I wasn't paying attention to one of them. I think he hit 2 home runs this series. You just got to give him some time. You just got to give him some time to figure stuff out. Obviously, it was a historic series in terms of runs scored for the Reds, so I know the numbers offensively are going to be a little bit skewed. The Reds aren't the 4th best offense in Major League Baseball. We know that as a fan base. We've watched them struggle to score for a week and a half straight. But they have that ability in them. It's somewhere deep inside, and they got to find it. They got to find it on a consistent basis. We still have guys struggling. I'm not saying we don't have that. You still have Jeimer Candelario did hit a home run for what it's worth, and I think he had a double in this series as well.
Well, it was Friday.
On Friday.
It's just Friday comes around, and Jeimer Candelario is going to hit his 1 home run of the week, and then we'll move forward.
He's still struggling, right? I mean, he's hitting 158. I'm not going to sit here and say that, 130. I'm not going to sit here and say that Jeimer Candelario is playing good ball right now. And you still have Spencer Steer. He's hitting 130 on the season. There's still guys struggling. But if you're able to get the production from Gavin Lux and Austin Hayes and the catcher position, which I don't even know what to say about it anymore.
The unequivocal strength of this team.
Other than the fact that, and Jacob and I were talking about it beforehand, all 3, if Tyler Stevenson comes back, all 3 catchers need to find a way to play. I don't know what we can do to have that happen, but we got to have all 3 of them playing.
I also think the other side of this that really helps the Reds long term is there is 0 rush to get Tyler Stevenson back. When that injury happened, we both talked about it on this show pretty consistently. We need him back as soon as possible because the offensive contributions from the catcher position without him are going to be miserable. At least that's what we thought.
Yeah.
Couldn't have been further from the truth. These might be 2 of our better bats in terms of a consistent basis so far throughout this season. I don't know how you can get them out of the lineup. I think Austin Wynns probably needs to play more, honestly, when we're looking at a lot of these things. So there's no rush to get Tyler Stevenson back from this oblique injury. Obviously, if he's back and he looks like Tyler Stevenson, that's another great bat in the lineup, and that's something you certainly want. But with Wynns and Trevino playing the way they are right now, that gives you a lot of leeway for a guy that's struggled with injuries his entire career to make sure he's fully healthy.
Austin Wynns has 10 hits, 22 at-bats. He has 9 RBIs, 2 home runs, For those who are keeping score, he's hitting .455 with a 500 OBP and a 1,200 OPS. He's incredible. I mean, he's been incredible so far and in limited playing time. I know that's only 9 games. For those of us like me who doubted Jose Trevino, hand up. My hand is up in the air. I was wrong about Jose Trevino. He's very, very fun. He's great. The post game presser he had on Friday night was awesome. He's an easy guy to root for. Jose Trevino came in here in a very needy Reds catcher position at the time. You needed him to be serviceable and or good when Tyler Stevenson's out for a prolonged period of time, and he's been that. He's been absolutely incredible. So shout out to him. Shout out to Wynns. They're awesome. Heading over to Austin Hayes, he's come up and he's dominated.
Yeah.
You know, this is a former Oriole who has come up and he's been absolutely incredible. If he plays like this, who knows where he's going to end up. It started on, I guess, Thursday against the Mariners, but Jake Fraley slowly playing a lot better.
Yeah.
Making good contact. We talk about him hitting about 130, now hitting 250, 340 OBP. Still probably not where you want OPS-wise at 760, but he's coming along. I understand why Reds fans are out of patience. I get that more than anybody else. It's okay to not have patience with a team that hasn't had a ton of urgency in the last 30 years. But with this team specifically, it's going to be the waiting game. You're going to have to wait to see what they are, who they are. Because I still don't know truly what the identity is. I think the bullpen's solid. I think our starting rotation's better than most. I think a lot of the offensive players could be significantly better than they're playing right now. But you just have to wait. You have to be patient. It's hard for me specifically. This is a reactionary show. We overreact literally every single day about the Cincinnati Reds. Every single day. I have an overreaction. It's because I have to talk about it, and I have to give you something to stew on while you think about the Reds. But the Reds right now, they're in a point where if you would have asked me before the season, where would you want to be heading into the Marlins and the Rockies and the Cardinals?
Because this is the stretch we circled on opening day.
Correct.
Saying this is a chance we have to really grab the season and take control early.
Where would you want to be? I'd say probably right 1.5, 2 games out of first place in the division. They're 2 games out of first place in the division.
Certainly not complaining about 500.
Correct. The Cubs are 14-10 right now. The Brewers are 12-10. The Reds are 11-11. And the Cardinals and Pirates, shout out to them. But this is about what we all thought,
yeah.
I would say. I mean, I would say they've lived up to expectations. They've done it in a weird way. I mean, there's no logic behind what the Reds are doing. They score 24 runs one night, then they get shut out in 3 straight games.
Yeah.
You know, there's no other team in Major League Baseball that's capable of that. None. I don't know what team has been in the past 50 years to be this wildly inconsistent. You know, if the Reds are able to figure it out, and when it comes to complementary baseball at some point during this season, they're going to have a shot at the division. I'm going to be hesitant to overreact to that Orioles series and say, you know, the Reds are going to the playoffs. These guys are great. Jake Fraley's great. Everybody's great. Austin Wynns is going to hit 500 the rest of the way. Nobody expects that. And I would say it's more dangerous to think that they're better than they are. They're not a 24-run-a-game team. They're not. They scored 24, but they're not that team. They just got to figure out a way to play a little bit more consistently, offensively. And I promise you, if they're able to do that, they're going to be in the fight. Jacob and I had that debate. You know, do you want to be in it in September, or do you want to have a real shot at the wild card, or at least be in the wild card hunt, you know, in late July, in early July, and late June? And I think the Reds are going to be that team. I think the Reds are going to be that team that's going to be competitive the whole way, and hopefully they're able to stay healthy enough for a late push. I don't know if they will be, but hopefully they are. I take a lot away from that series. I take a lot away from the fact that they fought. They could have that. I'm not going to lie. The Thursday game against the Mariners, where you blow that lead, Jake Fraley hits a grand slam to take a lead heading into the top of the ninth. Emilio Pagan blows a save for the first time this season. I thought they would have rolled over. I thought that would have been the gut punch amongst all gut punches, and the Cincinnati Reds would have laid down for a few games, and they just wouldn't have gotten back up until a week or two later. They got back up off the mat immediately. Is that Terry Francona, or is that just who they are? Are they just a resilient group of guys? I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. But they are resilient. If anything, this team is resilient. They're able to get up off the mat quickly after getting knocked down. And they're going to get knocked down a lot. Hopefully the Reds are able to figure it out at some point this season when it comes to offensive consistency. But this was a great first step this weekend against the Baltimore Orioles. A great first step. I want to talk a little bit about the pitching next. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a short break, ESPN 1410, Wing AM. We're going to talk about Hunter Green's start on Saturday. We're going to talk about Nick Lodolo a little bit coming up. And we're going to talk about the bullpen. Because from what I've seen so far, this pitching staff is as good as advertised. He had one bad game, but Hunter Green is still, in my opinion, on pace for a Cy Young this year in the National League. We'll take a break. ESPN 1410, Wing AM, Chatterbox Sports. Off the bench, Elliot, Jacob, and Casey. An unbelievable victory for the Cincinnati Reds on Easter Sunday. I didn't do this stat either, but I feel like the Reds are undefeated on Easter. I'd have to go find the numbers, but there are some very memorable Easter games. Obviously, the Joey Votto walk-off grand slam. That was, I feel like, on Easter. And there's been a couple other things, too, where I don't know. That was actually Mother's Day. I think that was Mother's Day. But I think the Reds had an Easter game where they won in the same way. I think it was
with Easter not being on the same day every year. I'm having struggling to filter this through. Because Christmas I can just go December 25th.
For some reason I thought Joey Votto had another walk-off on Easter too. It could be I know he had one on Mother's Day, but I thought he had one on Easter too. Doesn't matter. Either way, the Easter Reds are a different bunch. An absolute torching of the Baltimore Orioles. Casey had a stat during the break that I thought I wanted to talk about for a second.
Yeah, I mean, I was just curious about the last 10 games, how well the offense has been playing. They're averaging right now 7.5 runs. You take away a 24-run game, they're still averaging 5.5 runs a game.
Like over the last 10 games?
Over the last, 9, 10 games. I mean, this offense we've complained about it pretty much all last week. I mean, they're pretty consistent right now for about 2 weeks now. I mean, if they play really well in this stretch against the easy part of their schedule, they've been consistent for about a whole month. And we're looking at 500 baseball. I mean, hopefully we can get above that here in this stretch. But, yeah, I mean, I remember watching over the weekend, and I had the only game I could watch over the weekend was the game they lost, of course, and it was the Hunter Green game. But I remember Fraley coming up to bat and just thinking, man, this is just not going well. And boom, home run. I mean, I think that was the game where somebody had only hits, walks, and got on base just about every time they're at bat. I can't remember what game that was exactly, but yeah, this offense has been really producing. I don't know if it's just because the Orioles are bad or what, but they got to capitalize on the stretch.
The Orioles pitching staff has been battered. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I don't want to take away from what the Reds did, but it is a fact that the Orioles.
I mean, Charlie Morton belongs in a home, not on a mound.
Correct. So they have been dealing with struggles when it comes to pitching.
The other thing too, I forgot to mention this, that Orioles game that they lost, there was a point where Elly would have, I think, tied the game at 5-5. They dropped a ball out in foul territory. That could have changed the whole landscape of the game right then and there too. I mean, they were I know the final was 9-5, and it got out of hand early or later on in the game. But you get to a different scoring. Like if you tie the game up, I think it changes the ball game just a little bit. So I mean, despite them losing the one game, I think that the team itself has been not just like squeaking by. Obviously, they've been dominating, but like they're being very competitive throughout the entire game.
Yeah. And it's great that they have leveled out and had some consistency, because you kind of mentioned it there. If you look at the overall numbers of this team, they're working their way back to kind of what we expected them to be. I never in a million years imagined that this lineup and these players would be able to create this kind of highs and lows.
Yeah.
In terms of 3 consecutive 1-0 shutouts, and that goes to both how great the pitching staff was during that stretch and how abysmal the bats were. And then to turn around here, and like Casey said, over the last 10 games, they're averaging 7.5 runs.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of high and low is unsustainable, really. So to hear that even taking out 24 runs gets them to about 5.5 over the last 10 games, that's a great, great place to be, because that's the worry with a lot of these guys. You talked about it there. The bats that are really thriving in this lineup, more than them than not, are surprises.
Yeah.
Which does scare me a little bit in terms of how long can they keep this up. Gavin Lux hitting 320. Certainly, he showed flashes of that in the second half last season. People were very optimistic about the move. I don't know if he's going to be a 320 hitter all year long. Jose Trevino certainly hasn't shown to be this good of a bat his entire career through a full season of sample size. So we'll see what happens. But when you look at those stats as well, I mean, Matt McLain is not playing all that well, down to hitting 204 with a 340 OBP. That's something that's going to bounce all the way back. Obviously, Elly over the weekend had a massive jump in his statistics, jumping from, I think, about 22nd in league OPS and then up to 6th after Sunday.
Yeah.
So that really shows you how fickle a lot of these stats are early in the season. You talked about the team runs going from league average to towards the top. Looking at numbers, both good and bad, you got to be a little hesitant early in the season, because you just never know. One great series can bring a guy from 30th to 6th, and one bad series can bring a guy from, I'm sure, Austin Wynns is one of the best hitting catchers in all of baseball right now. He goes out there and plays 3 straight games, goes 0 for 15, and sure he'll be one of the worst, because he only has, 50 at-bats. So you certainly, take a lot of this stuff and be happy with guys playing well and be optimistic about this team, but it was, 2 weeks ago they got shut out 3 games in a row?
Yeah.
I'm very nervous about the consistency of this team, but if we're going to have highs that are just as high as the lows are low, we will be in the mix. So keep having those highs if you're going to have the lows until you can figure it out.
It's frustrating. I mean, it is frustrating to watch at times, because you don't really know who they are yet, and maybe it's because they're all so young. I don't know the answer, but it is a concern to me that there's still no identity. And once we figure out the identity, we'll have a different ball game. But there's a lot of work to be done still. It's a great series for the Reds. It's a great series for the Reds over the Orioles. One of the guys that we mentioned last time, last segment, 30 plate appearances. He's hitting 430, a 467, 786, 59.1 hard hit percentage, 22.7 barrel percentage, a 108.5 max EV. Again, a lot of those stats go over my head. Here's what I read. The guy's been absolutely incredible. He came up when the Reds needed a bat, and he was a bat immediately. Immediately. I was there for, his first night in Cincinnati. I believe Jacob was there as well.
Absolutely.
This is why you signed that guy for $5 million. It's going to be an unbelievable signing. I don't expect Austin Hayes to save the lineup. I know that was our debate last week. Will he save the lineup?
Has he?
I mean, maybe he has. Maybe he has. But him playing well, the rest of these guys playing well, it's something else, man. Before we get to the pitching real quick, Noelvi Marte. I said last year, before a certain steroid incident happened, I said that Noelvi Marte was going to be the best player on the Reds. I thought he was going to be the most important. I thought he was going to be the most consistent. I thought he was going to be a generational superstar. Then the incident occurs. We lose our guy for 80 games. He comes back after those 80 games, and he looks like, I don't even know what he looks. He looks like me.
He looks like a baseball player.
Yeah, he looks like me if I tried to play pro ball. That's how bad he looked when he got up last year. And then he plays spring ball and he looks bad. And he plays winter ball and he looks bad. And I had lost everything I had in Noelvi Marte. All the stock I had, I'd given it up. I'd sold it low. I'd lost. I'd lost it all.
To me.
I gave it all to you. If Noelvi Marte, and I know he had an error technically yesterday, if Noelvi Marte can be a decent third baseman, and he can hit the way he hit yesterday, the Reds, the outlook for the Reds changes drastically because it's less pressure on Jeimer Candelario, who clearly can't handle it. Jeimer Candelario is a lost cause. He can hit 9 home runs and 9 straight at-bats, and I probably still wouldn't be in on Jeimer Candelario. The less I see of Jeimer, the better we all are. If Noelvi can play third, great. Steer's got to go as well. So, I mean, at some point, Spencer Steer can't be on the Reds hitting 125. You know, it just he's not healthy. I don't blame Spencer Steer. He was a great player last year. He's not healthy right now. There's no reason for him to be here.
At some point, he has to push back, too, to this kind of the forcing him into the lineup. And I understand, competitive nature and players, want to play and all that stuff. And I'm certainly not blaming him in any sense. I'm more talking about from a financial standpoint and a career standpoint. Going out there and hitting 120 for 3 months is going to do irreparable damage to your statistics. Yeah. And I mean, if he's going to do this for who knows how long, I don't know how he can be okay with that as a player who prides himself on, being available. And I guess that's what he's doing right now is he's being available. So we should give him a round of applause to that. But at some point it is hurting the team. And I understand the pushback from some people saying, who else do you want there? At some point it's anyone else. Because we just saw Noelvi Marte and Austin Wynns combine for 11 hits. So let's try someone else at the DH role. He played first for the first time this year, and I'll be interested to see how that progresses. But nothing from the first 20 games at the plate showed me that he was healthy enough to move to the outfield or to the field. And now he played first base, and we'll see how that affects the injury and how he's able to attack pitches at the plate. So I don't know why there's such a discrepancy in the Spencer Steer conversation. We're not anti-Spencer Steer. I think when he's 100%, he's certainly one of the best bats on this team with the current roster, and I think you're hurting the future Reds months down the line by not getting him back to 100%.
Yeah, nobody's saying Spencer Steer's a AAA player. All we're saying is he should be on the IL to fix whatever injury he's got going on. Nobody thinks Spencer Steer's bad, but he's bad right now because he's not healthy. And they can masquerade the fact that he's healthy by putting him at first base and saying he's getting better by the day. But if you're going to contribute a 110 average with 6 hits on the year, you're not healthy. At least I'm going to give you the pass that you're not healthy. And we're going to move on. We're going to hope you get right. Give him a month off. Give him 2 months off. I don't know how many months it's going to take for Spencer Steer to be healthy. But clearly something's not healthy right now, and it needs to be addressed. But Noelvi Marte is an everyday player as of right now. He needs to be an everyday player.
What's the justification for putting Jeimer Candelario back in the lineup at this point?
Money.
It has to be, right?
That's
money's
the only thing.
Because you can't justify playing him at first over CES with what CES has shown you in the field, and they're very comparable at the plate. If Spencer Steer is healthy enough to play in the field, then he's certainly a better option at first base, regardless of the bat numbers, than Jeimer Candelario. Again, very similar, both hitting about 130. And you can't bench Noelvi Marte after the game yesterday. So I don't know what the answer is with Jeimer Candelario. Obviously, he's going to be on the team all year. Calling for a DFA or anything along those lines is nonsensical. That's not going to happen to a guy making this much money. We were looking at it yesterday. It does look like this is probably going to be his last year on the team if something doesn't change.
Yep.
So, obviously don't want to look too far ahead. A lot of season left that he could turn it around. He's had slow starts to the year before, but this feels like something else. It feels like it might just be the end of Jeimer Candelario. He doesn't look competitive. He's not a good defender. I don't really know what he adds to the team.
He adds nothing to the team. In fact, he takes away from it. Every time that Jeimer Candelario plays baseball, it's worse. It's a worse brand of baseball for the Cincinnati Reds. It's a worse brand of baseball. And I saw in the chat, Noelvi Marte, he was stat padding a little bit. Yes, sure, he was. I mean, no doubt about it. I think he had 2 hits against position players. Still had a great game. And if you're able to use that as momentum, as confidence, I'd still take Noelvi Marte. If Noelvi Marte hits a $120, it's still more than what Jeimer Candelario has given me. Just keep that in mind. Jeimer Candelario is hitting 130 for the season. 130. Doesn't make contact with the baseball. He has woeful at-bats. Plays 0 defense whatsoever. So he can't DH, he can't play the field, and he can't hit. That leaves pitching. Can he pitch? Probably not. He's getting paid a decent amount of money. He has to play. Obviously, that number goes down next year for the contract. So I'd imagine he'd be gone after this season. But who knows with the Cincinnati Reds. It'd be a team option after that. Noelvi Marte has to play every day. I think Austin Hayes is at a point where he's going to play every day, has to play every day. And you move around to who's going to be at first base. I understand why they don't do the Jose Trevino, Austin Wynns, first base catcher every day. I understand that. We have to have some semblance of a backup catcher on this team in case something happens. But to have those two bats, which are arguably top 5 bats in this lineup, not playing every day, that's something to be, I'm not going to say concerned about, but it is something that makes the Reds worse than they possibly could be. I would like to see those two get more and more at bats, especially if Spencer Steer. Now, obviously, I think that Austin Wynns would get sent down if Spencer Steer, not Spencer Steer, Tyler Stevenson got healthy.
Steer IL?
I think Steer would go to the IL. I don't know. Who knows what's gonna happen with this lineup. But right now, there's a way to make it better than it is. And obviously, it's getting rid of Jeimer Candelario, not in terms of cutting the contract, but playing less. Just playing less is all I ask. But now I want to switch over to the pitching. I'm going to switch over to the pitching. We're going to take a short break. ESPN 1410, Wing AM. I want to talk about Hunter Green's bad performance. I want to talk about the bullpen. I want to talk about Nick Lodolo tonight. And get your general scope of where our staff is right now.
Yeah.
Because if I would have told you coming into this year that we're probably a borderline top 10, top 5 pitching staff, I think we probably all would have been like, yeah, I think we could be. But I think we are. I think the Reds are that good. ESPN 1410, Wing AM, Chatterbox Sports, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. My guy Carlton in the chat saying I'm too negative. Listen, I am negative. Everybody knows that. The Reds are playing good ball.
They are.
I'm not saying the Reds aren't playing good ball. I'm saying I'd like them to be a little bit more consistent down the stretch. I don't think that's a crazy thing. I understand wanting to be excited about this. They scored 24 runs in a game. No team does that. Very few. Very few teams score 24 runs in a game. But there are aspects of the lineup that do concern me, and they concern me going forward. I don't think it's a crazy thing to say. But one thing that doesn't concern me at all is the pitching staff.
Right.
They've been absolutely incredible. Incredible. So we'll start with Friday. Reds win 8-3. Andrew Abbott, 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 11 strikeouts.
Unbelievable. Most strikeouts of his career.
Andrew Abbott is phenomenal. Phenomenal. I don't know what happens to him come August and September.
Yeah.
But when he's locked in, man, by far he's the third best, maybe second best pitcher in this staff. And to have him mixed with Nick Lodolo and Hunter Green, while Brady Singer's there as well, it's something else. I know people were saying, trade Andrew Abbott, trade Andrew Abbott. He's not that good. Is Andrew Abbott the Spencer Steer of our pitching staff? Because I think he's underrated.
Yeah.
And I think he contributes a hell of a lot more than what people say.
The thing about Andrew Abbott that makes it very interesting is, this start removed, this 11
Yeah.
strikeout start removed, his underlying metrics are not good.
Yeah.
Poor for a starting pitcher with the statistics that he has. Really no reason to project that he would continue to pitch at an elite level according to basically every metric. And he walks out on the mound and does.
Yeah.
So at some point, you got to just throw those out the window. And he's just a good pitcher.
Yeah.
Really, the Andrew Abbott conversation feels very similar to a lot of NFL draft conversations where you see a guy on the field dominate year after year. And then he goes and there's some numbers and timers that don't look right. And, he's not that good. And he falls, and then someone drafts him, and he turns out to be great because he was great for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
That really feels like what Andrew Abbott is. For some reason, he gets pushed down, and I do it. I do it all the time. I push him down the list of pitchers in the Reds organization, all the way down from being the fourth guy in this rotation behind Brady Singer to talking about Chase Petty and Chase Burns. Like, they're much more sure things than Andrew Abbott is. But at some point, the metrics don't matter.
Yeah.
At some point, he's a really, really good pitcher. And I don't know when that is. Maybe it's now. Maybe it's now when Reds fans should just all buy in on Andrew Abbott. I'm certainly going to enjoy times when he's on the mound. I feel better about him now than probably I ever have through 2 starts in this season. He looks more dominant than he has really at any point in time in his career in terms of swing and miss. And I really love what I've seen out of Andrew Abbott. If I'm wrong about Abbott being the expendable player in this rotation, what a great thing to be wrong about.
I think having a blueprint to exactly who Andrew Abbott is helps me believe in him.
Yeah.
I know who he is. I know he's going to be really, really good for the first 10 or so starts. And I'm talking elite. Really, really good. And then he starts to slowly wear down a little bit, and then you're probably not going to have him for the last 2 months. He had a late jump this year, which hopefully extends his season into the later seasons, or into the later months, excuse me. Hopefully that's going to be the case with him. But I absolutely love him. I love that guy. I love Andrew Abbott. He's a consistent 3-WAR player. He finished with a 3.87 his rookie year, a 3.72 last year. He's got a 1.6 through I know it's only 2 games this season, but he's been incredible. Usually when it comes to having these guys up, it's all about managing their innings and slowly working up that arm strength to where you can go 6, 7 innings consistently and make it a whole season. Pitcher injuries now are commonplace. Pitchers are going to go down with injuries. They're going to go on the IL for several 2-week stints in a season. It just happens now. But if we can limit the long ones, if we can limit the 1 to 2 month stretches where Andrew Abbott's not here, the Reds are in a great spot, an absolutely great spot. I look at Hunter Green's start and the 9-5 loss on Saturday. First time he struggled really all year. 90-something pitches, 3 innings, 6 hits, 5 earned runs, 2 walks, only struck out 4, didn't have it. He pitched so well this year, has pitched so well this year, that start might as well not even exist. That start, like I was kind of waiting for it in my head. Not that I'm not rooting for it. I'm not cheering against Hunter Green, but you literally can't you can't have a 0 ERA in 30 starts. Yeah. Just can't happen. Clayton Kershaw tries. But other than that, it's very rare to see a pitcher do something like that. He was going to have a bad blow-up game. The Orioles lineup is absolutely incredible. I love the Orioles lineup. So I'm not worried about Hunter Green in the slightest. I know the Hunter Green haters came out in full force on Saturday. This is what we talk about. There's no reason to say anything bad about that, have any concerns whatsoever. He's going to bounce back, and he's going to be phenomenal. I think his next start is scheduled to be almost certainly in Colorado, if I remember correctly. But yeah, Hunter Green is a Cy Young caliber pitcher in the National League. I think there's a legit shot that he gets it this year and over Paul Skeens. The vibes in Pittsburgh right now are not what they are in Cincinnati, and I know it's how can you measure the vibe? You can't. But boy, does it seem like Paul Skeens is unhappy. Yeah, I watched the interview he did this weekend, the post-game interview, and it just looked like he was absent. He was absent from that interview. They were asking him about the bobblehead stretching across the bridge, and he's like, "Yeah, I mean it's a bobblehead. What do you want me to do?" His
personality with the Pittsburgh Pirates had a drastic shift in interviews and the way he talks about it later in this offseason when they talked about whether or not he had been offered a contract. Yeah, and he said that there had been no advanced conversations. It seems like since that point, there's been a pretty clear split. Has there ever been a young superstar? Well, I guess we could say Elly. Has there ever been a young superstar that's been such a sure thing to not re-sign with their team? That's Paul Skeens.
Yeah, I mean,
Libby Dunn has zero desire to raise a family in Pittsburgh.
None, zero. And why would you? The Pittsburgh Pirates are a shameful organization. Shout out to Jeff Passan. He's been going on a couple Pirates rants for the past few weeks, and they've made me very, very happy. But Hunter Green's awesome. And the way this pitching staff is going right now, there's no reason to think that they're going to stop anytime soon. Hunter Green, 2-2 this year. Win-loss means nothing. He has a 2.35 ERA. Most of those runs, 5 of his 8 runs, coming on Saturday, excuse me. Brady Singer, he's 3-0 with a 3.3 ERA. Been absolutely phenomenal. He's given up 8 runs on the year as well. Andrew Abbott, a 1.6 ERA in 2 games, 11 innings, 16 strikeouts. He's been awesome. Nick Lodolo, he starts tonight against the Miami Marlins, fresh off paternity leave, 2.31 ERA. Now you can look at Carson Spires and Nick Martinez as who pitcher number 5 and how they've been. I'd argue pitcher number 5 isn't a starting pitcher right now. Rhett Lauder is going to come up eventually. Chase Burns just got promoted. There is going to be a 5th starter by the end of the season that's not Nick Martinez or Carson Spires. It's no knock on those 2 guys. There are roles for them in the bullpen. But they are not starting pitchers. They are not. Nick Martinez did an admirable job last year, but the fact of the matter is he can go 4 innings, and then after that, maybe 3 innings, 3 to 4 innings, and then once it comes to that 3rd time around the lineup, he's nothing. He can't be out there. The bullpen's been absolutely incredible. Ian Jabot, since the opening day disaster, has looked good. Tony Santillan's looked fantastic all season long, a 0.7 whip. Scott Barlow, I would say out of the new additions, he's struggled maybe the most. He's got a 4.82 ERA. I think he went nearly 3 innings on Saturday with Hunter Green, gave up a few runs. So I think that there are guys in this bullpen specifically, Graham Ashcraft, Emilio Pagan, Brent Suter's looked good so far to start this season. There are guys here that are going to carry us the rest of the way. I think the Reds pitching staff's legitimate. I think they're top 10. I think they're the best pitching staff by far in the division. The Cubs bullpen is not what I'm sure Cubs fans hoped it could be this year. The Pirates starting rotation is not what it was last year. The Cardinals don't have pitchers. The Brewers are always, I guess, okay, but the Brewers are not what the Reds are. You're looking at the best starting rotation and best bullpen probably in the division. Cardinals have a decent bullpen. They have a great closer. I think for the future and going forward for the Reds, that's where we shine. And maybe we don't go full Brewers and don't not help the offense at all. We just focus everything on our pitching staff. Eventually, you have to help with offensive additions, big name free agent bats. Eventually, that has to happen. But as of right now, the pitching staff's going to keep you in these games, and they're going to be competitive. Yesterday was a bullpen game. Every reason in the world for them not to give up, less than 2 runs. But that's what they did. They dominated. Completely and utterly dominated the Baltimore Orioles. So good for the pitching staff. Moving forward, again, I think the Reds, for the long term, at least until an injury comes back to bite us, I'm hoping that doesn't happen for a while. But until an injury comes back to bite us, you're going to keep seeing dominance from the pitching staff. I just hope the offense, as of right now, and as Casey said, the last 10 games, they've been there. The offense has been there too. Keep playing complimentary baseball. Hopefully the errors and the base running mistakes get fixed a little bit. And the Reds are in a great spot. 11-11 heading into this stretch is all I could have asked for. But that's it. The Reds back tonight, 6:40, Nick Lodolo versus the Marlins. Again, I'm not going to say it's a must-win, but it's certainly a can't lose. You can't lose this series to the Marlins.
These are 2 series you have to win. I'll say it. I don't think you can afford that, because what have you done so far this year? You've scratched and clawed to get back to 500 after letting wins slip through your fingers already.
Yeah.
You can't do that. This team should be at least 13-9. I mean, at least, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that, you have 2 series coming up here, you were able to scratch and claw, back to 500. You caught a break playing the Orioles at probably one of their lowest points all year long in terms of both roster health and how they're swinging the bat. You have to capitalize here. You absolutely have to capitalize here. And I feel like we do it every year, and I feel like we do it with the same teams every year. But this stretch doesn't even just stop with the road trip to Miami and Colorado.
That's what I'm saying,
St. Louis is playing terrible baseball. The Nationals are playing terrible baseball. Then you go to Atlanta, who are playing terrible baseball. You could legitimately go on a 2023 June stretch here.
Yeah.
And rip off. I'm not saying you're going to win 12 in a row, but if you can go 10-4 in 14 games, get a hot stretch here, capitalizing on teams that you should be able to beat. The Reds are going to be underdogs in probably 5 of the next 15 to 20 games.
Yeah.
You have to capitalize on that. If you're the Cincinnati Reds, you're a team who was sitting here going into the season with your win total in Vegas sitting right around 500. How do you get above that number? You thrive in these situations. You never project a team to sweep somebody.
Yeah.
So when you can go from winning, 2 of 3 against the Marlins to a sweep, splitting with the 4-game series against the Cardinals to winning all 4, that's how you swing those metrics pretty drastically.
Yeah.
To get you into a playoff picture, to get your projections up much, much higher. And we talked about how much 124-run game against Baltimore did for a lot of these player statistics and team statistics for the Reds. Why don't we do it for the next month? Not 24 runs a game, but why don't we play good baseball for a month and then look and see where these stats are at? Maybe this offense is closer to middle of the pack, upper end of that than we thought. We'll see. But I think there's a chance that this team can really be looked at differently after this stretch.
I don't want to take, I want to take it series by series, game by game, especially with the Reds. I don't want to look too far ahead. You have the Marlins and the Rockies on the road. You come home, Cardinals for 4. The Cardinals, by the way, thank you to Sean Connor. The Cardinals are 1-9 on the road. 1-9 on the road. After that series, you take on the Nationals at home. The Nationals are woeful. You then take the Braves 4 games on the road. That'll be a competitive series. I know they're not playing good baseball now. They just swept the Twins. They're a good team. Then you have the Astros, so 2 tough series right there. Who do you play after that? It's the White Sox. And then you have the Guardians and the woeful Pirates. This is a long stretch of games here where the Reds need to take advantage. There is 0 reason for the Reds to be sub 500 after all these games. 0 reason.
Next 17 games. That's Miami, Colorado, St. Louis, Washington, and Atlanta. 3 of those series are on the road. 2 of them are at home. What is our record after those 17 games? Going into the Astros series, because I think that's a pretty clear line of demarcation there where it gets significantly harder. I know the Braves aren't playing up to where they should be. We think they're a lot better than they are. You can't look that far past an 8-13 record for a team that's been abysmal all season long. So, including them, 17 games. What's the Reds' record in that stretch?
I'm going to say they take 2 of 3 from the Marlins. They take 2 of 3 from the Rockies. So we're four wins, 2 losses. I think they win 3 against the Cardinals. That's 7 wins, 3 losses. 2 wins against the Nationals. That's 9 wins, 4 losses. Braves, I'm going to say split.
Okay.
Braves, I'm going to say split. So that's what, 11-6?
Yeah.
11-6.
That's about where I'm at. I just want to make the NFL playoffs. Anywhere from 10-7 to 12-5, I'll be very, very happy. This team get double-digit wins in that stretch. Obviously, 10-7 might be a little bit tougher to swallow depending on where those losses come in. Obviously, if that's 3 losses to the Braves and you're still able to take care of the Marlins and the Rockies, it's a little easier pill to swallow than the inverse of that. But I think if we leave this stretch 3, 4, 5 games above 500, it's about as good as you can feel about this team in the first week of May.
Yeah.
If you got, presented that bill of goods before opening day, hey, you'll be 5 games above 500 second series of May. I think almost every Reds fan signing that. So if we can get there with just a reasonable stretch here against bad teams we should be favored against, it's going to set up for, like we said a couple weeks ago, a very, very fun May, June, and July.
The Reds aren't the best team in baseball. They're not even close. But what the Reds can give you is some semblance of hope. They're as of right now, healthy enough to be competitive. Pitching staff is lights out. And the offense has a few superstars on it that could propel you into a position to be in position to make the playoffs. So the season's not over. The season, the 2025 season is not over. There's still a lot of time left. They're playing good ball, and hopefully it continues. That's all we can ask for. But that's it for the Reds today. Again, Marlins tonight at 6:40. Hopefully we start off with a win because we know what happens when we lose that first game. ESPN 1410, Wing AM. We are going to talk about the NFL Draft, at least for the next segment or several segments. So ESPN 1410, Wing AM, Chatterbox Sports Off the Bench. We got Casey, Elliot, and Jacob in for you on this beautiful Monday. It's draft week.
Sure
it's
is.
Draft week. When you think the NFL's out, they bring you right back in. The NFL owns how many months does the NFL own out of the calendar year? I feel like it's a decent amount. I feel like it's a decent amount. The draft kind of takes up April, a decent portion of April.
I would even say for the last few months in what was a quiet draft season, they did a good job staying in the media part of it. Even the college stuff with Shador's number getting retired, that's all draft prospects. They like to drive the media. They took Christmas Day, 2 years ago?
They did.
They haven't looked back?
They haven't looked back at all. Poor NBA. The poor NBA was robbed of Christmas. That was their day.
It was.
And now it's not. The NFL Draft, obviously the Cincinnati Bengals coming in here hot with the 17th overall pick. Mm-hmm. Hopefully the Bengals, we did a mock draft on Friday. Maybe we'll do one more on Thursday for a draft show. We have a couple draft guests coming up this week.
Tonight, Gridiron Grading on a new episode of Chatterbox Bengals to break down fits for the Bengals and some draft nuggets for all you guys. So interviewing them at 6 o'clock. Probably get that up around 6:30, so make sure you check that out tonight before the Reds game.
So the Chatterbox Bengals, what time you said?
We're interviewing them at 6. So we'll get it up shortly after that.
Got it. Chatterbox Bengals tonight. Check it out. Craig and Jacob.
That's right.
We'll be again going tonight. I had this thought, and we had this debate last week. The Bengals, we can talk about who the Bengals are going to get and what the Bengals' future is. Makes sense to talk about that. But when you talk about the AFC North, a gauntlet, and I'm looking at the Steelers, and I'm looking at the Ravens. The Steelers haven't had a losing season in 7,000 years. And you look at the Ravens, and even the Cleveland Browns, who, though we all in this room think the Cleveland Browns are probably a disgrace. No disrespect. A little bit of disrespect. I called them a disgrace.
Hey, that's disrespectful.
They have the second overall pick. It could be a franchise-defining pick.
Absolutely is.
You have the Pittsburgh Steelers coming in hot at the 21st overall. And then you have the Baltimore Ravens coming in at the 27th overall pick. We need bad picks out of these three franchises. So I want to go down the list here. Your nightmare scenarios. Your nightmare scenarios for AFC North opponents. We know who the Bengals want to get. We know who this fan base wants. But who does this fan base not want to see in the other three cities in this division? We'll start with the number 2 overall Cleveland Browns. Who are the guys you want? And more importantly, who are the guys you are afraid to have the Cleveland Browns take?
I set up all the candles this morning since it's officially draft season. I've been praying for Shador. I would love Shador Sanders to be the new fearless leader of the Cleveland Browns. I'm sure it would work out. So that would be fun for all of us. The only name that scares me at that spot is Abdul Carter.
Yeah.
Because every single name that I talk about going to the Cleveland Browns, I can pretty quickly talk myself into the Browns screwing him up. Travis Hunter is one of the most unique prospects of all time. No one knows how to use him. And we're going to trust the franchise that traded 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson for how to utilize that guy? I think he's an elite player. I think he's one of the best players in this class, if not the best player in this class. In Cleveland, Travis Hunter does not scare me. And maybe that comes back to bite me. Certainly could. He's a very talented player. If any team's going to mess him up, I'm very confident it's the Cleveland Browns. I'm hoping they go the other Colorado route or just anything but Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter next to Myles Garrett puts the Bengals in a very, very tough situation where you potentially have 2 of the top edge rushers in all of football within the next few years, rushing Joe Burrow 2 times a year. That's a nightmare. We talked about yesterday or Friday about how the Bengals so desperately need to add to pass protection. That gets exemplified if the Browns go with Abdul Carter at number 2. So that's certainly the name for me. Cannot have Abdul Carter in Cleveland.
There's a couple names for me. I think Travis Hunter. I like Travis Hunter. I think he's going to be a really, really good player in the NFL. But him in Cleveland right now, as they try to rebuild whatever they got going on, without a quarterback, without hope, it doesn't make sense to me at least to draft Travis Hunter. Outside of him just being what Jacob likes the Bengals to do is just draft the best available.
Right.
So that makes sense. But you look at where the Browns are right now, and how does Travis Hunter really move the Browns next season? Can he be the best wide receiver he can be when it's 96-year-old Joe Flacco throwing him a football? I think they have a solid defense still. Obviously, you bring back Garrett and things change. But it doesn't make sense to me. And then you look at the quarterback room, and you're like, should we draft a quarterback? Should we set up our franchise? They swung and missed on a quarterback in the way that nobody else has ever done in the history of this league, in Deshaun Watson. Do you want to risk the next 3 to 4 years on a quarterback who I don't know? Again, I'm not into the weeds on the draft as much as these 2 guys are next to me. But I feel like the hype for Cam Ward or Shedeur are not what they are for, the Trevor Lawrences of the world, for the guys that have played elite college football and then have proven it in the NFL. I feel like the hype isn't on these two guys, who they'd take a quarterback. So do you want to risk your franchise, a franchise who's been, by the way, atrocious at drafting quarterbacks, on Shedeur or Cam Ward? I certainly wouldn't.
It would be Shedeur or Jackson Dart because Cam Ward's going number 1 to the Titans.
Okay, so it wouldn't be Cam Ward, so then it's Jackson Dart, then it's even worse.
Exactly.
So you wouldn't do it. I don't know. I don't know who I'm exactly afraid of for the Cleveland Browns. Casey?
So I'm going to cheat a little bit here because it's actually a combination of 2 things happening. It's Travis Hunter, and then they turn around in round 2, pick 33, which is the first pick in the second round, the first pick of the second day, and they go get Jalen Milroe. Because then I think that those 2 together are so dynamic of a duo together that would be kind of scary. Again, it's the Cleveland Browns, and they've got a whole situation up there to where those 2 probably would not succeed. But I can see a picture or a world where you pair a quarterback and receiver in the same draft class, just like we did 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, and it work out for, some success. So that is my fear, is a combination of Jalen Milroe and Travis Hunter, the most dynamic player in the draft class, the most dynamic quarterback in the draft class. Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, you stole my answer for the next one. Not to steal your thunder, Elliot, but the Steelers, the next team in the division that will make a pick on draft night, picking 21st, and that's the answer for me. It's Jalen Milroe. Because Jackson Dart, I don't have faith in, though I do think he ranks higher than Milroe on the big board. Shedeur Sanders, if he falls all the way there, I've said my piece on Shedeur Sanders. Jalen Milroe, his ceiling, though his floor is probably among the lowest for quarterbacks in this class, his ceiling is almost without debate one of the highest.
Yeah.
What we've seen from him when he's been on, thinking about the Georgia game at Alabama this year, the SEC championship last year, flashes in the Rose Bowl against Michigan, his ceiling as a passer when you combine it with what he can do with his legs is second to maybe none that we've seen since Lamar Jackson came out. In terms of a true dual threat quarterback, ran for 4 touchdowns against LSU, something no quarterback in the SEC has ever done. Just a remarkable player when he's on, but when he's off, he can't hit the broadside of a barn.
Yeah.
So it's a very tough pick to make in the first round. I think Casey's probably closer to the point here of where Milroe would go to a divisional opponent is probably that 33 to the Browns in the second round. He did work out with Cleveland. He also worked out with Pittsburgh. If Pittsburgh's going to make that pick with the bubblings we've heard early in draft season, I think they're going to have to make it at 21. I do not think he'll be there in the second round for the Steelers pick. I don't think the Steelers are going to go quarterback if those other three are gone. I think they'd probably lean more towards Jackson Dart. But if Jalen Milroe is going to work anywhere, it's going to be somewhere with very strict and regimented roles and a good culture and somewhere that knows what they want out of him. And Pittsburgh's not going to ask a lot out of their quarterback with his arm. He's going to be able to drive that game with his legs, and I think he could work in Pittsburgh, which does scare me.
What's the Pittsburgh quarterback situation right now?
Mason Rudolph.
It's Mason Rudolph is the starter?
That's right.
Yikes.
They're linked to Aaron Rodgers if they leave or not Aaron Rodgers, obviously linked to Aaron Rodgers, waiting on a decision there, but linked to Kirk Cousins. If they're unable to get a quarterback in the draft, they could be willing to pay up to $10 million on his contract as well as send draft compensation to the Falcons for Kirk Cousins to be the next quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Colin Will does put it in the chat. Important to note, Milroe is in attendance at the draft. The NFL doesn't often do that for players that aren't at least comfortably in the first round. A notable fall, Will Levis fell to the second round, and everyone, obviously watched him in the green room the whole time, made a lot of stories. NFL doesn't want that to happen again. I don't think they're sending Milroe an invite to that draft if he's not on a few teams' boards. So I don't even think it's, one option for him to get picked. I really think he might go round one.
Casey, for the Steelers, who are you afraid of?
I'm going to cheat again. I think for me it's the combination of the running backs, Amarian Hampton, and Ashton Ginty falling to them, and them actually pulling the trigger on one of them, because I do think that they've got the weapons on offense. You add a dynamic running back, and let's just say you happen to find that quarterback again. Maybe Milroe falls out of the second round and they're able to maybe trade up. They don't currently have a second round pick, the Steelers, but if they were to find a way to do that and get a Milroe, again, it's the same conversation. You get one of the most dynamic playmakers on the offensive side of the football with a quarterback that can also run around quite a bit. I don't want to have to face quarterbacks 4 times a year that can, extend plays, run outside the pocket. It just makes it that much more difficult for the Bengals to get a defense that is good enough to succeed in our division. So that would be my answer. I'll also throw a bone in there and say like a Jahad Campbell, just because I think that, if he were to fall and he makes it to the Steelers, that just their history alone will say that they develop linebackers, defensive players pretty consistently.
What happened last year? Peyton Wilson, consensus number 1 linebacker, first-round pick, falls to the second round. Steelers draft him, first-team All-Rookie this year.
Yeah.
So it would be the same thing with Jahad Campbell. I'm sure he'd be a stud.
Yeah, so it's just like if they get like a guy that just so happens to be falling. I threw Jahad Campbell out there. That might not be the guy. Maybe it's like a Mike Green, someone that, a James Pierce Jr.
That's a big one for both of these last 2 teams in the division, Steelers and Ravens. If they get any good players that are falling because of character concerns, they're going to get those character concerns ironed out and just get a pretty good player.
Correct.
And by the way, we segued to the Ravens. They have the 27th. Obviously, they had a good season. 27th overall pick, the Baltimore Ravens. Who would you be concerned about the Ravens getting here in the first round?
If you've been a Bengals fan for a long time, you certainly know that the Ravens don't make bad picks.
Yeah.
They just kind of make good picks. And the players that they pick, whether they're good or not on draft night, are going to be, really, really good starters for them in the season. One that really scares me, a player who is pretty close to a consensus top 10 to 15 player in this class, but not that way in the picks because of the positions he plays. Malachi Starks has met with the Ravens 3 times, the safety out of Georgia. PFF has him as their 8th player in this class, but going in the 20s because of the positional value of playing safety. That's a nightmare. Pairing Malachi Starks, or quite frankly, Nicky Manwari, the safety from South Carolina, who had a perfect 10 out of 10 on his RAS score, pairing either of them with Kyle Hamilton would give you by far the most versatile safety group in all of football. 2 studs that can move down into the box and play center field with elite speed. That's a terrifying pick. And much like I just said with the Steelers, either of the edge rushers we've talked about in this draft class with character concerns falling down the board, the Ravens is the nightmare spot. Mike Green, James Pierce Jr., both nightmare picks for the Baltimore Ravens because they will work. They might not work in Cincinnati. That's a very, very good conversation to have for the Bengals taking these guys with character concerns. I completely understand that. remove that when the Ravens draft them, because they'll make it work and they'll figure it out. And that's really what scares me with this pick, is that anyone will fall down the board inexplicably to the Ravens. It feels like what always happens. They get brushed under the rug because the Eagles are kind of the face of that, but certainly being in the AFC North, we know. I mean, Tyler Linderbaum fell all the way to them. They got Kyle Hamilton falling all the way to them. Lamar Jackson at pick 32. I mean, they have as much draft luck as anyone, and they have a phenomenal front office and coaching staff that are able to iron out all the kinks. So the list is very, very long in terms of the players that scare me for the Ravens. One that's a little bit more off the beaten path, Gray Zabel, the offensive guard from North Dakota State. He put together great film, has recently moved to minus money to go in the first round, so it could be a surprise going in those first 32 picks. The Ravens certainly have a need at guard. After last year, maybe they go small school and have a guy there that could really surprise some people in the first round, but be a really good player right off the bat.
Casey.
Yeah, not to steal lots of the names that we already said, but James Pierce Jr. for me and Mike Green, those two would be absolutely devastating for the Ravens to get their hands on, because you just know that they have the organization that is going to be able to figure out those character concerns, and they have a good enough organization to get those guys in an area in a realm where they feel comfortable with long term. And it just adds more to their defensive line. They got Matabike, a guy that's an interior pass rusher. Kyle Van Noy really came onto the scene last season. You get one more guy, and it's just, you're just adding so much pressure. And then Jacob already mentioned Malachi Starks or even Nick Emanwari. Those two would also just solidify a secondary with Kyle Hamilton and Marlon Humphrey, and that secondary would just be unbelievable at that point. So basically any pick on defense for the most part, them adding to defense would be really, really devastating in my opinion. I'm not so sure I feel the same way about any offensive picks, though, for the Ravens. I think I would feel like it's another day with Lamar Jackson.
Ravens have all 7, right?
I believe so.
They have more than 7, but
they dominate the compensatory pick formula. Dominate it. They got 6 picks for next year's draft in the compensatory picks formula.
Are you serious?
Just based on what they were able to offer players and let go in free agency.
Oh, this was like Deontay Johnson,
right?
Yeah.
They gave Ardarius Washington, their corner, who number 29. He had some great plays against the Bengals, knocked out the 2-point conversion against Tanner Hudson. I know that's a bad memory for Bengals fans, just letting you know how important he is to their defense. They gave him a $3.25 million right of first refusal offer. That's something that you never really hear of in the NFL, because you lose your compensatory pick formula and you have no right to match the offer given by another program. He followed up by that not getting a single offer in free agency and returning to the Ravens for that much money. A steal of a deal if you would have negotiated him in free agency. And they're one of very few teams that know how to pull strings like that. And that's why they're so consistent at being a contender in this league, because they just don't mess up. And that's what it takes. If you have good players to fall out of contention, you have to mess up. You have to light a draft on fire. You have to light a free agency class on fire. That's what the Bengals have done over the last few years, and that's why we haven't made the playoffs in back-to-back years. You see teams like the Steelers and the Ravens. I know they haven't won a Super Bowl, but, I mean, the Steelers have made the playoffs in a billion straight years, and it's because every single draft they leave it with impact players. Maybe they don't get stars. They certainly don't in free agency, but they're able to get enough to stay above 500. They're able to get impact players to fill holes for the team. The Bengals haven't been able to do that, and that's what they need to do for this draft class. I think that's the biggest thing, and looking at the other teams in the division, I think they have a lot of similar needs. The Ravens especially, looking at mock drafts from Ravens fans, you're hitting a lot of the same players we're talking about here for the Bengals. They need pass rush. They need interior help. They need a secondary. So if we're obviously picking ahead of the Ravens with the success they were able to have last year, if we're able to steal some players off the top of their board, not only is that a good thing for us, because I believe in the Ravens draft board, but it's a good thing for us in that those star players aren't falling to the Ravens. So, picking ahead of teams in our division with similar needs is a thing that, if you hit it right, can be beneficial in more ways than one.
Let me ask you this before we move off, and by the way, thank you very much, everybody, for listening on the radio and on YouTube today, ESPN 1410, Wing AM, Chatterbox Sports Off the Bench. Let me ask you this. One final draft question for the radio, and it doesn't really have to do with our division. Who do you think is going to be, when this draft is said and done, who do you think is going to be the most important draft pick this year? I was thinking about it the other day. I don't think it's going to be a quarterback.
Okay.
So I'm going to rule out Shedeur and Cam Ward, so that's the 1 and maybe 2 or whatever, whenever Shedeur gets picked.
Yep.
Who do you think is going to be that guy? I don't think it's going to be Travis Hunter either. So who does that leave us with? Ashton Jeanty, maybe? Potentially, whenever he gets drafted, he could be a generational superstar when he gets to the league?
The pick number I have circled, less of a player, but the pick number I have circled is the Bears at pick 10.
Okay.
Ben Johnson, new head coach, one of the most creative coaches, play callers in the entirety of the sport. Caleb Williams, a guy I really like, who showed good flashes at the end of last year to be closer to the player that they drafted first overall. Right now, a lot of mocks have them taking Tyler Warren, Ashton Jeanty, or Marion Hampton. If they go offense, skill player, ball in his hands, that's my answer.
Okay.
Any name. Because I truly believe Ben Johnson is that good as a coach, that he's going to be able to scheme these players open, get them value touches, and use them to the best of their ability to maximize their talent. And especially if it's a player like Tyler Warren or Ashton Jeanty, who I think are two of the top 5 players in this class, regardless of position, he's going to get the most out of them. So going 10 to the Bears, I think, is a perfect spot for any kind of offensive weapon. Other than a position for pick, the name that jumps off the page to me back to the tight end position, it's Colston Loveland, the Michigan tight end. And I'm the biggest Michigan hater in this area, but he's a stud. A good inline blocker, great 50-50 ball receiver. Thought he was lying about his height and weight at Michigan. He was not. Came in right around the same at the Combine. He's going to be a very, very special player. The spot I have circled for him is potentially going to the Broncos. I know they signed Evan Ingram to be their slot receiver. I don't think he's a tight end. I think Sean Payton would love to have Colston Loveland playing that joker role in his offense, and that would be such a good get for them, or really any team. Right now, Tankathon has him mocked to the Colts at 14. I think that would be fun, certainly a tough offense to go in with your completion percentage guy at quarterback, but we'll see how that works out in Indianapolis. Yeah. I think both those tight ends, Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, are going to be studs regardless of where they go.
ESPN 1410, Wing AM. Chatterbox Sports Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Elliot, Jacob, and Casey in for you on this Monday. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Have a very pleasant Monday afternoon. We are going to continue it rolling here on the YouTube side. Everybody have a good day.
I'm not doing the whole fancy intro because we're not on radio.
That's right.
You do it anyway.
That's right.
Tanner does it anyway.
Yeah, I know. So, well, it's what it is. It's
habit.
Yeah, it's habit. It's like what I do. Shout out to anybody who's a member. It's what I do for Quiplash too. I just start reading things. It's muscle memory at that point.
We some a little bit more draft talk getting out of the AFC North, but Adam Schefter put out a great article today going through basically everything that he has, everything he knows, all the intel he's received, where people are leaning for certain picks, and what picks and players might be available on draft night. And that's what I wanted to focus on here. The Bengals not listed anywhere in terms of trade back opportunities. That's very upsetting to me. I would love them to trade back from 17. Trading that pick for Khalil Herbert has come back to really hurt us in draft season, now only having 6 picks. So if the Bengals were able to get more picks in their back pocket for this draft class, I think that'd be a wonderful place to be. Does not look like that's going to be the case, but there are other teams that are looking to trade back, and I think some of these certainly could come into play for the Bengals. Most importantly, as we just talked about, the Steelers picking at 21, they have made it known that they are interested in trading back if a player that they love is not available. Other teams that have made that known in the first round, all the way as high as the Jaguars at pick 5, the Panthers at pick 8, and the 49ers at pick 11. 3 top 11 picks currently on the trade market. Obviously, we don't know if those are going to get moved. All will be contingent on what offers are given. Then you get down to outside the top 15. Falcons at 15, Seahawks at 18, Buccaneers at 19, Vikings at 24. I think with the discrepancies of where players are graded on teams' boards this year, we're going to see a lot of movement in the middle rounds of the draft because you'll have a guy, say the Falcons, picking at 15. The top player on the board left is their 23rd best player, but it's the team picking in the 20s, it's their 15th best player. They want to get up and get him. I think we're going to see a lot of that throughout this draft class. Something else that could really spurn these trades is a Shedeur Sanders fall. We've heard that a lot over the last few weeks. I do think if someone moves up to him, that's probably going to be an owner decision. We've heard that a lot over the last few days, that if Shador does go in the top 10 to 12 picks, it probably will be an owner's decision, whether that's John Mara with the Giants or the Saints. We don't know, but if he does go top 10, it's looking that will be because of the owners. Also, a lot of players that have been listed as on the trade block, players on rookie contracts that are available. Some seem interesting to the Bengals. Greg Newsome, the corner from the Browns, obviously getting him out of Cleveland would be a positive, but we talked about the secondary being a need here in Cincinnati. On the rookie contract would make that a door that we could at least explore for the Bengals financially. Kayvon Thibodeau, the edge, previous top 5 pick from the Giants, he is on the trade block. Certainly interesting if the Bengals went guard in the first round. Casey talked about late last week that you run out of some depth with those defensive pass rushers pretty quickly. Maybe if you miss out on someone you really, really want, Kayvon Thibodeau for a mid-round pick could be something that would be interesting to explore. Titans looking to trade Will Levis and Treylon Burks. Will Levis makes a lot of sense, seeming like they're bringing in Cam Ward. Outside of that, we have veterans which are probably outside of the Bengals' pay range, but would be very, very interesting ads. Most notably, Jalen Ramsey and Jair Alexander, corners from Miami and Green Bay, both all-pro players at different points in their career. Certainly on the older side now, not the same as they were in their prime, but adding either of them to this defense, even a shadow of their old self next to Cam Taylor-Britt with Dax Hill in the slot, that would raise the ceiling and floor of this secondary pretty drastically. And then one veteran that's on the trade block that would be a little bit more fun, maybe not a need, but Dallas Goedert, the Eagles tight end, is available. And depending on what you think of Mike Gesicki and his ability to play a true tight end role, I don't have a lot of faith in that. I think he's a crucial player to this team, one of the best players on this offense, a great, great re-signing. I don't think he can play a true tight end. So bringing in Dallas Goedert or kill 2 birds with 1 stone and trade for Mark Andrews, who's on the trade block.
We'll take it.
That'd be fun, too.
When was the last time the Bengals made a trade? Like, on draft day?
No.
Never?
That's just, why? Why would you?
Well, I'm just
You
like,
can
I
improve
was
your team.
I was just trying to think about it. Like, I know
Cordy Glenn, right, Casey?
Say it one more time.
Cordy Glenn, right? Was the Bengals' last draft day trade? Not that it was on draft day, but affecting the draft.
The last major first round trade back was the Cordy Glenn trade, which was, I want to say 2017.
We traded back for Jackson Carman.
That was day 2, but yeah, we did do that. I think we also did that for Drew Sample.
Yes, that's true.
Day 2 is an option.
All the studs.
So they're 100% on that hit, right?
That's right. The last player, obviously, listed as veterans on the trade block. Do you want to take a guess? It's Trey Hendrickson.
Oh, no.
And an interesting nugget. The first time I've seen this in a long, long time. I'm talking months. The Ringer put out their official mock draft.
Okay.
And then had the Bengals trading Trey Hendrickson to the Washington Commanders for pick 28.
Okay.
That is something I would be overjoyed about. Overjoyed if you can get that kind of value this late in the process. I think a first-round pick for Trey Hendrickson probably flew out the window a few months ago. If not months, then certainly weeks. I think when you hold on to it this long, your best chance at getting top-shelf value is to wait till after the draft. You trade him to a team that missed out on an edge rusher for premium picks next season. I know that's a tough pill for Bengals to swallow, kind of a stab in the back, because you're hurting the team this year by trading Trey Hendrickson for nothing that can help it. But that is what I thought was the best chance at getting what I think is what you should get for Trey Hendrickson. Maybe not the case. Maybe that opens back up later in this draft, depending on how the board falls, and the Bengals can sneak into the first round or very, very early second for Trey Hendrickson. That's something I would jump all over.
Let me ask you this, Casey. As you look at the first round of this draft, which team is in the most desperate need to hit? Because I think, like, I know the Bengals have a good roster next year, a decent roster next year. I would say the Bengals have to hit probably more than over half of the teams in this draft, in this first round. Who's the number one team that legitimately can't miss with their pick?
I mean, I hate to cheat, but I do think it is the Bengals, right? I mean, you have the most riding on them. Like, you have your franchise quarterback already figured out. You've missed the playoffs 2 years in a row. I don't know another team that really fits that bill. Maybe, like, you could argue the Bears, just how much financially they've put into the team. maybe it's like one of the other teams up top, like the Browns, I guess, if they want to not tear everything down. There's not very many teams that have as much pressure to get it right than the Cincinnati Bengals.
I don't think it's the Titans. I don't think it's the Browns, because the Browns, I mean, what's one pick going to do for the Browns at 2?
The only way
it's not going to save their franchise.
that it could be the Browns is if you're asking this in the sense of coaches and GMs picking for their job.
Okay.
Like, I think the Browns pick it too. If they take Travis Hunter at 2 and he doesn't look good this year, Kevin Stefanski's out of a job. Andrew Barry's out of a job. I think that's the same for the Giants at 3. And as you get down the list, I think those top picks are more coaching for their jobs. And I'm not talking about making the playoffs. I'm talking about going 5-12 and looking competitive. Could save a lot of these guys' jobs, but I think you need these picks to work out for that. In terms of making the playoffs, outside of the Bengals, I think the Cowboys would be the only other team.
I was just about to say the Cowboys.
I was thinking Cowboys as well. The Jaguars are a team Sean Connor put in the chat. I kind of agree there, because I feel like the Jaguars are in this weird place. They should be better than they are. They had offensive weapons. They have offensive weapons. You have your quarterback, supposedly, if you believe in him still, in Trevor Lawrence. You've got a decent running back room, maybe one of the best running back rooms in the NFL. Obviously, the wide receiver room took a hit after this past year. But the Jaguars seem to be a team, especially in a division that's arguably the second worst in the NFL, maybe the worst in the NFL. Like, they should be a lot better, and you have to have a successful draft eventually for that team to work out in a division, again, that they should be in contention to win every single year. But they're not.
The only reason I'd push back on that is first-year GM, first-year head coach. I think there's zero pressure.
Yeah.
In terms of, Liam Cohen, get your offense out there, hope Trevor Lawrence looks good, and if you win, 3 games, you win 3 games, and you try to get next year. I think they really believe in their new GM, James Gladstone from the Rams, and Liam Cohen, their coach, the OC from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they're both really, really good guys in those roles. I think they're going to get the Jaguars to where they need to be. I do think, for a lot of what you're saying there, the Jaguars are pick 5 where the draft starts.
Yeah.
For me, at least. I mean, I think Cameron Ward, number 1 to the Titans is all but a sure thing. Travis Hunter, 2 to the Browns, all but a sure thing. We're flipping a coin between does John Mara pick up the phone and force Shedeur Sanders to the Giants, or do they take Abdul Carter? Number 4 is either Amon Membu or Will Campbell, one of the tackles, whoever the Patriots can prefer. No one has a consensus on the Jaguars. It seems like Mason Graham is where most people are pushing them to go. We've seen drastic line movement from both tight ends, Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, both running backs, Marion Hampton, Ashton Genty, and Tet McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona. All 3 have come way down in their odds to be picked top 5, most notably 5 to the Jaguars. They might go offense and give Trevor Lawrence everything that he needs to succeed. You pair Brian Thomas Jr. with one of those tight ends or Tedero McMillan, you have a really scary receiving core. And I guess you just give Trevor Lawrence everything he needs with no excuses and hope it works, because you already paid him. You might as well.
You have to. The 49ers are another team the chat's saying right now. They have the 11th overall pick. And I feel like for a team that just made the Super Bowl, 2 years ago, I feel like they've lost every piece of momentum that franchise could have possibly had. That's with Christian McCaffrey. They seemingly have their quarterback in Brock Purdy. If they're going to continue to roll with him,
when are they paying him, by the way?
I don't know. It's got to be. He can't play without a contract, right? I mean, he's not going to play this year.
He has a year left.
I don't think he plays. I don't know how you don't hold out if you're Brock Purdy making. What is he? He's not even making $1 million.
I think it's a little below $1 million.
Funny is that's exactly what happened like 2020, I think, when they went and played against the Chiefs the first time. Like, you go to the Super Bowl, and then the following year they were just bad. They were just really bad. And they got Brock Purdy the next year, and then missed out on the championship game. I think he got hurt. And then Super Bowl, now you're back to where you were, 5 years ago?
Yeah. So. Last time the Niners picked this high, they did all right. They got Nick Bosa. So maybe they just do that again at 11. They certainly need an edge rusher. That's 11 and 15 are the 2 spots where I'm holding my breath. Me on draft night, Bengals fans, I'm sure you're on the same page. Niners and Falcons have pretty much aligned with the Bengals in terms of edge rush and interior rush visits.
Yeah.
They love a lot of the same players. They're focused on a lot of the same players. We have to get lucky with how this board falls. I would love to have options present themselves to us, and if not, you have to be confident in pulling the trigger on somebody. So hopefully more and more players fall. Hopefully some of those teams that are linked to trading out trade out, and we get more offensive weapons and quarterbacks going in the top of the draft than we think. But Yeah, it's certainly been interesting. Todd McShay had a podcast today, and he reported that the Bengals are very interested in all three players with character concerns. That's Mike Green, James Pierce, and Walter Nolan, the edge rushers from Tennessee, and Marshall, and then the interior defender from Ole Miss. All three players, elite production, great college film, and really, really good athletic testing. But they all three have off-the-field concerns that have driven some teams away. At least according to Todd McShay, that's not the case for the Bengals. And that's something I really, really applaud for them in this draft process. Because when we're talking about which teams have the most pressure, which teams need to hit on these picks, you don't have the luxury when you put yourself in this situation to overlook character concerns.
Yeah.
If you have a great player on the board, you have to take them and take advantage of that skill falling to you. And you have to put the onus on your coaching staff and the professionals in your building to make that work. That's part of coaching. It's not just X's and O's. It's getting people to buy into your system and compete to the highest of their ability. Getting the most out of your players is something we talk about all the time with coaches. How is that any different from having character concerns locked in? We saw how happy Zach Taylor was in the drafting when they drafted Jermaine Burton last year. That was his guy. That was someone he evidently pounded the table for to draft. Obviously, that didn't work out. That cannot be something that scares you away from these players. It can't. We just talked about the Ravens being great in the draft. I guarantee you Eric DeCosta doesn't have these players off their board because of character concerns. He's confident in John Harbaugh and the Ravens facility getting them to buy into the Ravens culture and playing well. Why aren't Bengals and Bengals fans confident in that? I can tell you why, because we haven't seen it a whole lot.
Yeah.
But that's what good teams do. That's what perennial contenders do, is you bring in great players that shouldn't be on the board when you're picking, and you make them be great. And I'm optimistic that maybe this year the Bengals are going to start doing that.
I can see both sides of that argument. You look at Jermaine Burton, his off-the-field issues, I would say, were a little bit different, given the fact that it felt like his issues were specifically related to football, just not showing up, not paying attention during film. You know what I mean? Like, there's other character concerns that, sure, morally you can have rightful objections to. But when it comes to, like, work ethic and stuff, when it comes to not showing up to film, not showing up to practice, not caring, seemingly not caring, that's the biggest one for me. You're drafting professional athletes. You're not drafting the Boy Scouts of America. But saying that if you do have character concerns, you better damn well make up for it with your talent and with what you do on the field, what you do showing up 5 minutes early or 15 minutes early to practice, staying 15 minutes late. You know what I mean? There's that's the part for me where it's like, that's what I want to see. You know, if you're going to get a guy that morally, you know, whether or not you want to say is the right choice or not. I think that when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals and we're fighting for our lives every single year, you miss the playoffs back-to-back years, the first question we should be asking is not, you know, how nice are they?
Right.
How good of a friend can they be? That's not the first question. It's
maybe in a sport where you have to run through someone's face who's 6'6", 330 pounds, maybe you shouldn't, you know, play tiddlywinks on the weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's how well can you hit somebody's face?
Right.
Like that's what we're drafting here. We're not drafting how good of a friend are you.
The players I remove from my personal board are when I open up the bio and it says better guy than football player. Not interested. You got to be a better football player than you are person to play on my team.
And I feel like the Bengals, I don't know, back to not to go too far back into the Wayback Machine, but when Marvin Lewis had that defense in its prime, in its heyday, we didn't exactly have a group of nice fellows. You know, we had Pac-Man and we had Vontez, and we had guys that weren't afraid to hit anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I want. I want a group of guys that are out there just running through people.
Joe Mixon had 1,300 yards his junior year at Oklahoma. We got him at pick 48.
Yeah.
That's not because of the running back, Joe Mixon. That's because of a lot of other stuff. And that certainly worked out well for the Bengals to capitalize on talent that shouldn't be on the board. I know a lot of recency bias with Jermaine Burton has Bengals fans really, really, really wanting to take character concerns off the board. I get that. You just mentioned the early 2010s defense. Pac-Man Jones, Vontez Burfict, the faces of that defense. Pac-Man Jones is a captain of this team.
Yeah.
One of the better players of that era in terms of what he was able to do as a returner and DB. Obviously had some character concerns, was able to play really well between the white lines, and that's what the Bengals need. You have to add players that can dominate between the white lines, and I just think that should be priority one, especially when you have Joe Burrow at quarterback and Jamar Chase at wide receiver and T. Higgins, and you don't know what's happening with Trey Hendrickson. You can't straddle that fence of drafting good players. You've set yourself up for this draft where you absolutely have to leave it with certain positions. You haven't given yourself the luxury to just take the best player available with the best personality. That's something you do if you address free agency with the vigor the Bengals should have addressed free agency with. Then you have that ability to knock some players off your board because of personal issues. I think they've lost that ability with how they've handled this roster. You have to take advantage, and quite honestly, I think three of those three players are in my top 5 to 7 for the Bengals. You know, Walter Nolan, Mike Green, James Pierce. I'd be very happy with all three of them in Cincinnati, and quite honestly, I hope one of the three of them is on draft night.
Super chat here from, I believe this is Colton. Colton, our good guy Colton here. Big week for the Bengals, boys. Bengals do not need flashy picks. Get some legit starters, and let's take the North. We need, like, the time for, what was Trace's bit last year, projects?
Yeah.
No projects this year. We need somebody who's ready to contribute immediately. That's what I want for the Cincinnati Bengals. And by the way, that's what they need if you go defense. The defense certainly the biggest issue of the season last year. If you're going defense, they have to be ready to roll. They just have to be. Offensive line, maybe you can argue to me that they learned from Orlando, and maybe you have someone in the future. But I still think even then, the guys that we've got, at least two of them, aren't the guys that we need for the Bengals to make a Super Bowl type of run. So I'm hoping they can draft ready now NFL talent, and I'm sure they will. It's round 1, pick 17. You're going to get somebody good that's ready to go. So that's all I can hope for the Cincinnati Bengals. But that's it. All right, NFL draft. We're gonna have more NFL draft talk throughout this week. Again, Chatterbox Bengals will be up. The video will be up tonight with Gridiron Grading. So tune in for that. Interview is at 6, so sometime after that interview, it'll be posted up.
Quick as my little thumbs will work.
That's right, on Chatterbox's YouTube, so tune in. And then obviously tomorrow, hopefully we'll have Kenner. I know we're supposed to have a few guests at some point this week, so again, stay tuned for that. The Bearcats, not to change the subject too much, but the Bearcats, they just landed our guy. So I went to a UCF game this past year. In December, I went up to Orlando and we saw what was going on. I said, this center that they've got, this kid, I looked at my buddies Zach and Chris, and I'm like, I want this guy bad.
Yeah.
He seems to be what Aziz is in terms of height and rebounding, but then he adds the offensive scoring.
Well, that would be fun.
So that would be fun. Again, the Bearcats just brought in Mustafa, excuse me if I'm butchering this name, Mustafa Tiam. He has committed to Cincinnati out of the transfer portal. He averaged 10.6 points, 6.4 rebounds per game his freshman season in Orlando. He's a former top 50 recruit. This is a massive get for the Cincinnati Bearcats basketball program. I'm hoping that this is going to be the guy that transitions us into a tournament team hopefully next season, because God knows we need one here. But all right.
Bearcats dominating that football portal, too.
That's right. Big Sat's got him cooking. Man,
unbelievable.
Could you imagine if Big Sat doesn't win 4 games this year?
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
That'd be wild. I mean, that would be absolutely wild.
You see Bearcat football program, man. They handle themselves in the offseason like they're in the Big 12 and a contender.
Yeah.
And then
they play games.
Well, I mean, the non-conference games usually are good.
Well, I mean, usually. But, sometimes you lose to Miami.
And then you got the conference.
And then you got the conference, and then that usually is the end of the season, right around when that starts. So hopefully, who knows? Maybe the Bearcats football and basketball programs will be better next year.
Yeah.
I'd certainly bet the under, but to each their own. I'm cheering for my boys. I see you're going into a war right now about the character in there.
No, we're just debating James Pierce pass rush.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Well, everybody, have a very pleasant Monday afternoon. This has been Off the Bench, presented by UDF. Elliot, Casey, and Jacob here. Hopefully we will have Kenner back tomorrow. We got a plethora of guests lined up. We got Chatterbox Bengals tonight. So everybody stay safe out there. Chatterbox Reds tonight. Chatterbox pregame show tonight. So a lot of Chatterbox things tonight. Stay tuned. Stay dry out there if it's still raining. I don't know if it's still raining, but stay dry. Everybody have a very good Monday.